quite frankly, the whole team.
And we're back. A little technical difficulty there, just figuring out the audio, but we're still rocking and rolling. Still talking about Gaylord St. Mary's. Again, a big 40-0 win over Onaway, one of our 5 schools that we cover. And are we going to get to the highlights? We want to move on to the next ones.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's get into them then.
Let's go ahead and bring in a little picture-on-picture as I welcome. Thanks for having us. Apologies for those technical difficulties there with the audio. We're working this one through, but let's pull this one together as we go ahead and take a look at some of these highlights. First of all, and starting off, the highlights from last week is the Gaylord St. Mary. These highlights tonight are presented by Gaylord Seal Coating. And this one started off, it was a 40-0 game for Gaylord St. Mary. Right here, they're going to swing this one out into the flat, get a completion to Cal Royce. They're going to take this one all the way down the sideline for a touchdown. And that's a good-looking opening play for the Snowbirds. And then they do their thing in the end zone, celebrating a little bit. Maybe hit the gritty, and they're going to attack on the 2-point conversion. Right now, this is Greenier, and he's not going to get stopped. And you see it right there. Nobody's going to stop him.
No, he's kind of a big bull just running through stuff.
Yeah. And then you look at this one. The snap gets away from the Cardinals, and the Snowbirds are there to scoop and score it. I mean, you can't complain about that. Just another great job. That was Skoronski for the Snowbirds there, who was able to scoop that one up and take it into the on-away end zone. And there's Nathan O'Connell on a nice quarterback keeper doing his thing. Nice completion out into the flats. Just keeping on his feet right here. Eventually dragged down. And that was a tough-looking tackle there for the Snowbirds. But here's a little pitch out. O'Connell to believe that's Greenier again. So, you get those two guys out in space, and then boom, nice play made in the backfield by the Snowbirds. And here's another one. Nathan O'Connell giving this one up the middle to Greenier.
It looked like another game, too. Like I said, you had the 2s and 3s, and I know they got to 40-0 pretty quick, and it kind of just stayed there for most of the second half, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. I mean, you see the final score here, 40-0, and for the Snowbirds, they just continue their run of dominance. They'll be taking on Pellston this week. Pellston comes in, I believe, with a 3-2 record,
yes.
So they do have a winning record. So the Snowbirds will be taking on an opponent that has a winning record. This will be, I believe, the first time that the Snowbirds will do this all season long, since they played Rudyard, who week 1 that was a 0-0 record, and then Central Lake, I think, had a 1-1 record when they played Central Lake. So it'll be interesting for the Snowbirds. Can they continue this momentum? I think that they're going to be continually getting some more pieces back and healthy. That'll be important for them, because
the key word I was going to bring up, especially having these blowout games. You can get healthy by playing their 2s and 3s.
Right. One of their major games at the end of the year will be their showdown versus Inland Lakes. If you just look at the records of the teams that they have left on their schedule, that'll be the big game remaining for the Snowbirds, but you can't look past any of the opponents as well. They've got one against Pellston, which is a divisional game, and then after that they'll be taking on Breckenridge, Holton, and then the presumable Ski Valley Conference showdown with the Inland Lakes Bulldogs week 9. So That'll be a good one. Now we're going to send it over to Jared Stamen, and Jared's going to walk us through some shots from the East Jordan and the Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart game from last week.
Yeah, this was a pretty big game for both these teams. East Jordan losing in week 3 and 4 in heartbreaking fashion, and looking to bounce back this week. Sacred Heart was also 2-2, and they ended up taking their playoff spot in this News to You bracket, which we mentioned a lot on the Next Level show. And this was big home game for them, homecoming night as well, and it was just off to the races. Max Beal hit the screen pass early, off just good blocking, hit the Jets.
And once he gets his stride, there's no one stopping him.
Oh, not at all. But Sacred Heart was quick to bounce back. They had a big throw. Duffy here, number 5, was really the big offensive guy. He scored both touchdowns for Sacred Heart, one on the ground there, and another pass. It was a 70-yard pass against Brady Wilson, 50-50 ball, ends up getting there. And right here, I think it's Max Beal punches it in again. This game was pretty close at halftime. It was 14-12. East Jordan looked to have some control, and then in the second half, they really started to run away with it. Brady Wilson got the pick right there. Great night as defensive back, normally known as the wide receiver of the group. Then we got Max Beal. Actually, that's Webb again, breaking off. Last week against Lakers, had a 53-yard run and does it again against Sacred Heart.
So we bring up every week talking about Max Beal because obviously he missed a couple of games early on in the season. We thought maybe that was indicative with the way their record was because of how influential he is on the field. And has he made that big of a difference since he's come back?
He has, but real quick, I want to highlight, this is my favorite play of the game. It was near the end of the game. You could say garbage time with 1:26 left, and Griffin Boyer, big number 51, tips the ball to himself and runs it back for a touchdown. Didn't end up really affecting the game, but you could tell it was a really, really good moment for him on homecoming night. But yes, Max Beal, it's that next level for the offense. He's the guy that you can dump it off in the flats, and he'll make 2 guys miss, and next thing you know, he's in the end zone for a touchdown.
Well, thank you for that insight, Jared. And moving on, we'll move into what the Charlevoix Raiders got into last week. They got to 5-0 with a 42-0 drubbing down at Benzie Central. Charlevoix, again, it seems to be rocking. It almost seems to be the Garrison Starrett and Ian Moran show most of the time, as you can see them scoring a touchdown early on, going up 12-0. And again, ended up with a 42-0 score. Really not much to talk about for this game. It seemed to be over early.
Yeah, Shane Smith was on that game, and I remember talking to him after the game, and he's become a little accustomed to these Charlevoix blowouts. He's ready to see some competitive football for them to play a team that's more in their alley. Nothing against Benzie Central, but as you can see, Charlevoix just was the dominant team from start of the game to the end.
Well, we'll get into their next opponent later on. Again, their next opponent coming up doesn't necessarily have a winning record, but they've got a pretty decent defense. So we'll get into that game, obviously, as we get into the latter portions of this show. But yeah, you just can't. There's the train just keeps a rolling, and again, 5-0. And, another win gets you automatically in the playoffs again. And who's going to get in front of Charlevoix? They know they've got some interesting games coming up besides the one coming up next week.
And that was a great jump ball there. Double coverage. Came down with it.
A little tip ball action, a little tip drill there. Make sure you're calling it out. Get that. And get the ball, tuck that thing in, and get your wall set up, although you end up getting tackled right there. But, you always got to be ready, have those hands up ready for the tip drill.
Yeah, as we just saw in the East Jordan game, the tip drill is always important. Sometimes it goes for 6, but, as long as it comes in interception, I don't think teams are going to be too upset.
So, moving on, Charles will come in for this next one as we get set up. Traverse City St. Francis also now 5-0 after an exciting end to their 21-20 victory at Kingsley. And Charles, I know as you're getting the highlight set up for that, you've got a nice breakdown of this one.
Yeah, this one was really a classic game between the Traverse City St. Francis Gladiators and the Kingsley Stags, much like we've been accustomed to seeing. Here's how we got it started. This is Tyler Endress breaking loose for 28-yard touchdown. And this is where the scoring started. Notice we're at the third quarter. So this game was 0-0 at halftime. And, it just kept on going for this game because then Kingsley answered back. And look at this deep shot from Tyler Endress to Tyler Thompson completing this one. It was about a 75-yard touchdown pass. And that put the Gladiators up 12-8. They did get the 2-point or just the 1-point field goal point after attempt, to make it 15-6. Kingsley then would give it up, and St. Francis would score here, making it 21-6. And then on this requisite kickoff, the Gladiators pinned the Stags inside their own 2-yard line, tackled at the 2.5-yard line. And then from there on out, Kingsley had to really change their offensive game plan, and they put it up in the air, and they did that. Here's Colton Goethals scoring on a nice little corner route. And then a 2-point conversion was good to Goethals, and it was 21-14, an onside kick. You don't see too many of these in high school football. The Stags recover with 1:17 left in the final quarter, and then they put it up in the air. Look at this catch to Goethals. Goethals snags that one and goes in for 2. Now here's where the game really gets going. We're going to go ahead and pause it right here. Notice the score. 21-20, 1 minute, 5 seconds left to go in the game. Stags lining up to go for the 2-point conversion. This would put them up 22-21 if they're able to drive it in and get the 2-point conversion. But here's what happens. Watch the left side of that Gladiator defensive line just stuff Goethals, and that is how the game ended pretty much. Kingsley didn't have any timeouts left at this point in time, and 21-20 was the final.
There's
there.
a great video shot out there of that goal line stand on that final play where you can see the linebackers and whatever going up there and just firing away and trying to make sure that Stags didn't cross the goal line.
I mean, it certainly was a really, really good game, but I will say this. Being up 21-6 with only 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, I think a lot of people thought that game was pretty much over, in addition to a lot of Gladiator fans and maybe even some Kingsley fans that thought that one was almost in the books. And then Kingsley, credit to them, they never quit. They made a couple plays deep from within their own territory. They hit a 70-yard pass down the sideline, and then Goethals, the Grand Valley State commit to go play football, he really made some catches at key points and times in that game because he made a fingertip grab, making it 20-21. It was a touchdown that brought him within 1 point, and it was a great, great catch. Dreves really laid it out there in a spot where only his guy could get it, and he got it. But the goal line stand for the Gladiators proved just too much to keep Kingsley out of the end zone to go up by 1 with that 2-point conversion there at the end.
You know, and we'll get into who they face next because they've got quite the gauntlet of a schedule, including their game next week, and we'll get into that later on. But right now, we'll finish off and round off last week's games. I was down in Elk Rapids for a homecoming game with the Elks bringing in Mansalona and had a fourth period comeback to get to 2-3 with a 15-14 win over the Ironmen. And as we start firing up the highlights, nothing really happening until the second half. And for Elk Rapids, pretty much the fourth period. Not much going on. Their defense keeping them in the game as it was 14-0 at one point. And again, the defense holding their own. And the offense started to get a little bit of an identity. They've got their quarterback in Ollie Trammell. They were missing a back. They had Mason Cannon out, but they had a great substitute and a sophomore that came in and did a great job in running tonight as we get a nice run down the left side here. Where is that? Is that the interception return?
That's the interception, yeah.
So we get into, if we want to go back and run that again, we get to a point where Mansalona, Elk Rapids have been doing a good job of plugging the run. And so Mansalona started airing the ball out, but we're throwing these big air balls up there. And so I'm talking about, you just got to run underneath one. Sure enough, Connor Carlisle runs underneath one, and he takes it 90-plus yards all the way back for a pick six to get it down to 14. I think they get it down to 14-6, and they get the 2-point conversion in here, I believe, with Braden Flutie going around their outside, which was nice how he motioned in and then came back out and got that. So then they're able to, as they get the replay on the 2-point conversion. So then they're able to get the ball back, and here's the play right here as they connect to Trey Dennis here about the 50-yard line, and they still can't get him, get a little help from the ref there, and he gets inside the 10, tripped up just inside the 5. And so 1st and goal inside the 5. So you got basically 2 plays have gotten them close to the goal line, one for a score and one close. And they end up, I believe Braden Flutie ends up getting in for this touchdown as well. And you can see nice shot by our cameraman getting the student section in that, getting it tied up. Delay game penalty on the extra point. So they had to back it up 5 yards for the kicker, and he still nailed it through to put them up 1 with a minute and a half left, and they end up stopping them on a 4th down. And I think the last play is you get to see a victory formation by the Elks.
There's a sack right here by coming in.
Yeah, Braden Flutie comes up, runs up, ends up dragging him down on 4th down, and you'll see the Elks be able to have 1 play of victory formation, able to run the clock out and come back with that 15-14 victory. And man, were the stands and the people, I mean, that was as much as a party can be going on for a high school football game, there was a party going on in Elk Rapids after that game.
Well, I mean, you got to like the fact that they were able to win their first game at home. They had to come from behind to win it. And, well, I'll credit Elk Rapids for fighting hard and not giving up on that game.
Well, and the thing I looked for, too, is, again, the defense has been holding them in games. Granted, they gave up 30 to Boyne City, I believe, but the other games have been, like, like around 10 to 13 points or so, something like that. So the defense has been there, and I always bring up needing an identity for the offense. Well, again, I think they're getting that identity, and hopefully another week of practice, they'll be able to have another nice game coming up this week. So that's going to do it for our first section. And when we come back, we get into a little pro sports, a little Tiger talk. As some of you were probably watching TV today, we got one wearing a hat and one wearing a shirt. So we'll come back and talk some Tigers after this break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, Klein from TVC Airport. We're proud to help keep you connected to high school sports in Northern Michigan, so you can stay in the game all season long with TVC, your Northern Michigan connection.
And welcome back to the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Eric Huffman, Jared Stamen, and Charles Strail bringing you the action this week. Right now, I'd like to get into a little Detroit Tigers. You can see we're sporting some Tiger wear. Some of you were just watching earlier. The Tigers exhale, just like I did just there. Yeah, found a way. I think, what was it, 6-3 or something like that? I think they end up with a victory today to end up moving on and take on the Big Dumper and the Seattle Mariners. Reflect back on this series and then maybe a take or two on going up to the next series. Jared, what was your thoughts on the way this series with the Cleveland Guardians panned out?
Well, in the first 2 games, they had 23 chances, with runners on base, and they only struck in on 2 of those. This game, I believe they were 3 of 8, if not a little bit higher by the time the game was over. And that's really the key to victory. They were getting guys on base, but they just couldn't ever get them into runs. And they finally decided that we're going to have guys hit the ball in play and get these RBIs in. And look, you saw what happened. A win.
So I'll ask one question, and Charles, you can chime in if you want. One question I would have would be A.J. Hinch's decision-making coming into the postseason. Would it have been better to start Skubal the last game of the season to try to get home field and win the division as opposed to starting him game 1, or do you think it went the way it should have?
I think they played their cards just right. I mean, we talked about it last week during the show that we didn't really like the way that the trajectory of the Tigers team was headed. They came out here, proved that the postseason is an entirely new season. Their offense came to life in this closeout game 3 versus the Cleveland Guardians. They got a great top of the 7th inning, I believe, when they scored 4 runs in that frame. And then from there, they were off and running. So I think being able to throw Skubal in game 1, you take your chances there with Casey Mize in game 2. And then I thought Jack Flaherty, throughout the most part of this season, I thought was a bum. Look at his ERA and his win-loss record. I didn't like his performances.
I think they talked about at the start of the broadcast 15 losses,
right?
Which I don't know if it's some type of record or something like that going into a postseason or whatnot.
I mean, it was just great all-around baseball. They only had 1 error in today's game, and when you can play good, clean baseball, I believe the error was a fielding error by Will Vest later on in that 8th or 9th inning when the Guardians scored 2 runs on that Ramirez double, or single error, and they actually threw Ramirez out at second base on the tag out. So the error allowed 2 runs to come through, but the Tigers, they did their thing and here, won 6-3 over the Guardians. They'll take on Seattle, and you and I were talking a little bit earlier. I think the Tigers are equipped to win a divisional round series, which is a best of 5. I think they can win the ALCS, but I don't think they can win the ALCS if they're facing the Toronto Blue Jays. But at this point in time, if you're a Tiger fan, they've at least accomplished what they accomplished last year.
Now, does the manager stick with, I know with these 3 games, I think he stuck with the same players for all 3 games, just switch the order of the lineup. Is that something you would see possibly going into this? Are there any changes that need to be made? We've got a nice youth movement with some of these guys, Carpenter and Green. They're not obviously first half of the season form, but obviously they're doing enough right now. And then you've got these veterans like Labor Torres and Ibanez coming in and proving their worth at crucial times.
Yeah, honestly, in my opinion on that is I think you've got to continue to roll with whatever A.J. Hinch wants to do. He's shown us time in and time out that when he makes a change, there's some mythical reason for it. He's got his reasons, and whether it's most of the time based in analytics and based on facts and just based on like a hitter versus pitcher matchup. Like today, Perez, he moved up in the lineup. What does Perez do in the top of the 7th inning? He rips a double down or a single for 2 RBIs in that frame that really started getting the wheels rolling because they walked Kerry Carpenter right before Perez came up, loaded the bases, did the Guardians, and then Perez comes up, crushes a changeup, pulled it down the right field line for an RBI or 2 RBI single. So that was an A.J. Hinch move. He moved Perez up in the lineup, kept him in the lineup, didn't pinch hit him at any point in time during the game. And also got to give a shout out to Dylan Dingler because he hit that home run to put the Tigers up 2-1. And I thought that his previous plate appearances, he hit the home run on his 3rd plate appearance. His first 2 plate appearances, man, he wasn't within 12 inches of hitting the ball.
Well, let's not forget that throw out he had during the game today.
That was big, too.
Right on the money. And any bit off, then the guy is safe. So
here's a little trivia. Throw out. The last time that a Tiger pitcher had a home run and throwing out a runner in a playoff game? 1984, Parrish. During that World Series Tiger
Bless
game.
you, boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Jared, I'll leave this with you, and then we'll, as we're up against the break, getting into pitching. You've got Skubal. I don't know if he can do 14 strikeouts every game. And then you've got Casey Mize. Now, are we going to get first half Casey Mize or second half Casey Mize? And then it just seems like to be pitching chaos again. Can the Tigers get away with that this year after everyone's seen it?
I think kind of what Charles said is you have to treat the postseason as a new season, even though it's pretty bang right after the regular season ends and you've just played 3 games in a row. If you're the Tigers, I think you stick with what you know. I mean, you were leading for the first half of the season, 14 and a half games, so that you can't play dominant baseball, and you just have to get back to doing that. You can't overcomplicate it. You're in the dance now. You just know what you got to do to win the next game.
All right, so real quick, who you got in the series, Charles? And how many games?
Give me Seattle in 5.
Seattle in 5. Jared?
I'm going to say Detroit in 5. Let's go Tigers.
I am also going to say, sorry to say, Seattle in 5, I think. Just too inconsistent in the second half of the season for me to trust it too much. But we will see what happens as the Tigers take on the Mariners. But right now we're going to go into another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some NFL. Actually got some top 5 lists. You're going to dive in to see how intelligent we are, or if we just aren't intelligent at all. But we'll find out after we take this quick break. We'll be right back. You are watching the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Stay tuned.
With unique gifts, home accessories, wedding items, and so much more. The Lake House on Bridge Street offers so many things to make your home or even your visit to Charlevoix that much more special. When you want beautiful items that reflect Charlevoix the beautiful, stop in or visit them online at thelakehouseCharlevoix.com for your own keepsake and your own personal memory of Charlevoix.
Welcome back to the Next Level Show. Right now, we're going to get into some NFL. Real quick, briefly mention the college games within the state of Michigan this week. Michigan State's going to go to Nebraska, see if they can't take on Mahomes II. Number 20, Michigan, the only Michigan team in the state of Michigan with a home game, going to host Wisconsin. Central is at Akron. Eastern going to Buffalo. And Western is going to go to UMass for a matchup this weekend. So the Detroit Lions also now 3-1 after a 34-10 win over the Cleveland Browns. They're at Cincinnati for a late afternoon game with the Bengals, and I know Jared's all happy about that. But right now, we're going to get into what we like to call our top 5 list, top 5 what we call our NFL teams for this point of the season, the quarter poll, if you will. And I think we'll start off with Jared's top 5 list. And Jared, if you want to break these down for us, then let's just see how intelligent you think you are.
Oh, I'd love to, Eric. So I deliberated over this a little bit, talked to Charles, I think, on Wednesday. We gave our lists on Tuesday, and I was kind of wishy-washy thinking, oh, is someone going to change? And you're going to see, I was thinking, a team that's not on here that you'll see potentially on a different one, the Colts. But number one, it's the Bills. I mean, I don't think it's hard. The number one offense the last 2 years. They've averaged almost 30 points a game. Good defense. Some of the best linebackers. They're going to get Ed Oliver back healthy. Very underrated interior defensive lineman. They're still the number one team. I think the AFC is going to run through them. And same with the Eagles in the NFC. The Eagles, 4-0. They could be 2-2. They kind of got away with 2 wins, 0 passing yards in the second half of last week's game, but they win. And that's kind of the Eagles' recipe is we don't really care how we're going to win. We just find ways to win. And that's kind of the recipe to success. You kind of saw that back in the day with the Patriots. And number 3, Detroit Lions. I think that they could be a fringe 2 team. I had a deliberation if I was going to put them above the Eagles, but after, the Packers loss is looking worse on them. I know the Packers are injured, but they're playing hot. They're going to go into Cincinnati and probably put up a 60-plus burger. So, we'll see after week 5.
Yum, 60 burger.
60 burger. I like it.
Number 4, we got the Rams. Matthew Stafford, I don't understand why he doesn't get the praise as being still one of the debatably top 5 quarterbacks in the league. And he's got Devontae Adams.
He played for Detroit
Puka
for so
Nacua.
long.
I mean, studded cast, good running back, good line, solid defense. Jared Verse, Byron Young kind of leading that front. I still think they're one of the best teams. And knocking off the Colts last week was a really good win. Colts the surprise of the season. And then number 5, it's pretty much the reason that the Chiefs are up here is 2 reasons. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. That combo is just the AFC. They've ran the AFC for the last 8 years. Ever since Brady left, it's pretty much been the Mahomes show. And as a Bengals fan, it hurts my soul a little bit to put them up here, but I don't really care about the 2-2 record. They're only getting healthier. They're going to get Rashee Rice back. They still got debatably the best quarterback in the game. Maybe Josh Allen's overtaking him now, but I got to have the Chiefs on this top 5 list. I just don't think he can have a top 5 without him.
I mean, any questions for Jared there, Eric? I mean, obviously, we'll each go through our own top 5s as you see me welcoming into this little picture-on-picture. I'm right in between the middle of you two guys. It's great that we're all warm and cozy here. There's me right there. I'm the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. I mean, depending on which way your orientation is there, with left shoulder, right shoulder. But, Jared, I think that's a pretty good belief in your list and very well thought out points. I think, the only one that I would say is a little subjective would be number 5 with the Kansas City Chiefs.
My only question is
Yeah.
the Chiefs. Yeah.
All right, so Eric, let's move on to yours.
Yeah, so my type 5, I think I'll go from 5 up to 1
Yeah.
as opposed to
All
what
right.
Jared did. So as soon as we get up there, 5, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are one Baker Mayfield scramble and interception away from possibly being undefeated. And they've got a pretty decent defense, and they've got an offense that can put numbers up. I just think that once that all clicks, I think they could be even higher than 5. We'll keep that simple. Number 4, the LA Rams. They've got a good defense. They've got a good running back in Williams, who's on my fantasy league, by the way. And, Stafford just playing out of his mind again. Stafford, from when he was in Detroit. We all rooted for him. We know the tools in that package, and he just continues to put up numbers year after year. No reason why LA can't get to the playoffs and make a run towards the Super Bowl. Number 3, I was ixnaying the Lions early on in the year, especially after that Green Bay loss. The Green Bay loss almost seems to be like a fluke now, what's going on with Green Bay. And if they would have won that game, I'd probably have Detroit at 2 or 1. Goff, highest completion percentage in the league right now. The running backs have come back around after week 1. And again, the receivers are doing what the receivers do. And the surprising thing is the defense. We weren't sure how many holes the defense would have getting healthy again. But, man, they're one of the top rated in sacks and tackles for loss and whatnot. So the defense doing a great job. So Lions deservedly at 3. And then number 2, I've got the Buffalo Bills. I don't think anyone can touch them in the AFC. And Josh Allen, the reigning defending MVP, no slowing him down. And they've got a great complement with Cook in the backfield, and their complementary receivers, and the defense playing a good year too. So there's no reason why you can't see the Buffalo Bills towards the top. But my number 1 team right now is the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning, defending champions of the NFL. And until somebody beats them, I just don't know why they should come off of number 1. And I said this in the pre-show. 3 wins that they have this year are against the Bucks, the Rams, and the Chiefs. No matter how you win, a win is a win. And until you beat the man, you can't be the man. And so the Philadelphia Eagles are my number 1 team right now. Charles, I'd like to move on to your list.
Yeah, Eric, the only thing that I guess question I would have towards you is obviously you have that separating factor between the Eagles and the Bills. Is there a potential that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, if those teams both stay undefeated, that you'll flip-flop them?
No.
Okay.
No, the champ is the champ. And, unless the Eagles are barely winning and the Bills are blowing everyone out, I'm not going to waver from that.
All right, so here's my list, and let's bring myself in here. So I got the Bills, Eagles, Rams, Lions, and then making their way into the first Next Level Broadcasting show, top 5 of mine are the Indianapolis Colts, the Horseshoe. They're in there. And the reason why I think that the Colts are worthy of being in my top 5 is because the ability for them to take their roster. They're not paying Daniel Jones that much money, just making in like the upper 30s in terms of NFL salary. For a quarterback is a nice bargain price for a quarterback. You're able to get guys like Jonathan Taylor, who fully healthy Jonathan Taylor is leading the NFL in rushing right now. And behind Quentin Nelson at right guard, that offensive line for the Colts, they're maulers. And let me tell you what, if you don't pack a lunch, boom, those offensive linemen are going to get to your linebackers, and Jonathan Taylor is out the gate, and he's dancing with the mascot in the end zone. Let me tell you what, the Colts also spent a lot of money in free agency this past year, brought in some guys, particularly in their secondary, like Cam Bynum from the Vikings that Minnesota couldn't afford. The Colts paid the piper, got Cam Bynum, and he's a difference maker in that secondary. Now, the Colts secondary did get torched last week by Matthew Stafford, and, well, we'll talk about the Rams a little bit later. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions. The Lions, through the last 3 weeks of the NFL season, are leading the NFL in scoring. Did you know that, guys?
Can't say I'm too surprised.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so after having a very subpar performance against the Green Bay Packers week 1, we heard a lot of the coaches say for the Lions, hey, don't panic. We just missed a couple of things. And to my eye, those couple of things that they missed were on the offensive line, particularly guard, center, guard. They got back together on track versus the Bears, and then they went and dismembered the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore on Monday Night Football. That might be one of the most impressive road wins of this 4-week season so far, outside of potentially what Philadelphia did versus Tampa Bay last week. I think those are my number 1 and 2 away wins so far on the season. But what the Lions have been able to do, I don't think you're going to see too many teams put 34 points up on the Cleveland Browns. And granted that they did score a special teams touchdown, but if you take out the special teams touchdown, the Lions still scored 27 points against a vaunted Browns defense. And they still were able to run for 100 rushing yards, and Jared Goff was able to just kind of dink and dunk. The Browns defense didn't really hit anything deep, but that's okay because you got to get rid of the ball against the Browns quickly, or else Myles Garrett's going to be doing a stanky leg on your quarterback's face. Next up, we got the LA Rams, Matthew Stafford and company. In my opinion, we're just a couple special team gaffes away from having the most impressive road win of this 4-week season so far, almost beating the Philadelphia Eagles. They were set up in Philadelphia territory to kick a game-winning field goal, but nope, Jordan Davis blocked it and then scooped it and scored it. That's why the Rams are number 3 on my list, right behind the Philadelphia
They also
Eagles.
have they also play an injured 49ers team tonight.
The Rams do this. They do. They'll be taking on a 49er team without Ricky Pearsall, and they'll be starting Mac Jones. So the Rams have an opportunity to improve to 4-1, get an extended bye. Let's see if they're able to take advantage of that secondary. Let's see if the Ram defense will be able to kind of bounce back after allowing Daniel Jones and company of the Colts to put up some points. But as I said earlier, the Colts can score, and that's why they're here on my top 5 list, in the Charles Hand check, if you will. Next up, number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. You saw what they're doing. They're 4-0. I can't really go into knocking them points for their inability to look pretty. In the NFL, I don't care how you win. I care how you play against the opponent against you on the field. That's the only opponent that you're facing that week. And right now, Philadelphia, their defense, their special teams are leading the way. I think their offense is still a little bit of a straggler, just kind of picking up steam, trying to get up to speed. It's like somebody who's trying to get their conditioning at the beginning of a season of sports. Their offense just doesn't seem to be functioning at the same type of level that their defense and special teams. We've seen their special teams on back-to-back weeks now generate game-changing plays or saving plays in the Rams game, in that case, and an altering play as they blocked a punt, scored it for a touchdown against Tampa Bay on the first drive of the game that the Bucs had. So that's when the Bucs are as fresh as possible. It's not like they're battling fatigue. And the Eagles went down to Tampa Bay in a 94-degree day. The heat index was like 102. And they led wire to wire in that game. So I still got to keep the Eagles at 2. And the next is the Buffalo Bills. I think Buffalo has really cemented themselves. And for me, the reason why they're at number 1 instead of Philadelphia at number 1 is because I trust Josh Allen more than I trust Jalen Hurts. And because of that, that's where I put the Buffalo Bills at number 1 on my power rankings. I really like the way that they're utilizing James Cook as well this year. With a healthy offensive line, they don't have to rely on Josh Allen to get a lot of those rushing yards. And I think as James Cook continues to develop, Buffalo paid him. So now you should use him, and you want to wear him out, Buffalo, because he's going to take a lot of the wear and tear off of Josh Allen, making sure that Josh Allen can stay healthy. Eric, I see you're perked up. You got a question.
No, I'm just curious because all 3 of us have different number 5s, and so I just wanted to get all of our outsiders looking in, maybe like your number 6 that, that could be up on that number 5, just didn't reach it today since we all have different ones. Jared, who would be your outsider just waiting to get into that number 5 slot?
Yeah, I would have to go with what Charles said, the Colts at number 6. They were a really fringe team. I was thinking about putting them over the Chiefs, but then I was like, game on the line. Daniel Jones is one quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is the other. Unfortunately, I think we kind of all know the obvious choice there. But one of the things about the Colts, which is maybe not a big deal, is Xavier Howard just decided to retire during the week this year after getting cooked by Puka Nacua. I think he allowed, 12 or 13 catches for like 150 yards, and he thought, that's enough. I'm going to focus on family now. So a potential loss at the corner 3 spot for them, but trade deadline's still going on. I don't think it's really anything to be scared of.
Charles?
If I were to rearrange my top 6, I would put, even after a bad loss here on Eastern time zone last week, I'd put the LA Chargers at number 6.
Yeah, you took it from me. My sixth team is also the Chargers. I think they're just one not so good game away from being undefeated. I believe just one loss right now, and they've got it. They've got it on both sides of the ball, and they've still got a good chance. I picked them to win the West this year, so obviously the Chargers are my number 6. That'll do it for our top 5 list. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into our Week 6 games and also check in on the Snooze to You site and see if there's any intriguing matchups for some of our teams preparing for the playoffs. We'll be right back after a short break. You are watching the Next Level Broadcasting Show.
Hello, I'm Orion Beningo, but you might know me for my business, Professional Seamless Gutters, where we specialize in, you guessed it, everything gutters. New installation, replacements, cleaning, leaf guards, rain chains, and much more. But unlike many service providers, when you call Professional Seamless Gutters, you get me, Orion, not some bum intern or call center recording. So when you're contemplating any services regarding the gutters on your home or pole barn, think Professional Seamless Gutters.
Hi, it's Kevin Klein from TVC Airport. We're proud to help keep you connected to high school sports in Northern Michigan, so you can stay in the game all season long with TVC, your Northern Michigan connection.
Welcome back to the Next Level Show. Right now, we like to get into our Week 6 games of the high school football season. Already Week 6, man. Wow, season's flying by fast. East Jordan is at Boswell Stadium this week, take on the 3-2 Ironmen of Mancelona. Mancelona, as earlier talking about, losing to Elk Rapids 14-13 on a heartbreaker last week. Jared, any insights into this game coming up?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we went live, and, East Elk Rapids is not a terrible team, but East Jordan definitely a step above. And after losing to Elk Rapids, the Ironmen, they did lose in a heartbreaking fashion. Could have potentially won that game, but I think Max Beal, William Webb are going to show them how to score a lot of points. I think we're going to see potential 10 to maybe 2.2 touchdown lead at the end of the game for them.
The one thing I got out of Mancelona after seeing them for the first time is they really tried to run the ball, and once Elk Rapids really stacked that box and Mancelona was forced to pass, they couldn't really complete any passes. They had guys wide open, just were able to complete passes, right. So it'll be interesting to see how they are able to adjust to not only East Jordan's offensive line, but their defensive line as well.
Yeah, we'll just comment real quick. East Jordan defensive line with Dion, Boyer, and Mayer. That is quite the front to face, so running teams beware.
And so moving on, Gaylord St. Mary's, they're at 3-2 Pellston. Hornets are coming off a 44-14 loss to Cedarville, actually coming off back-to-back losses, because I believe the week before was a 50-0 loss to Central Lake. And Charles, do you have any insight in this game coming up?
Yeah, really what I want to talk about for this game is, can the Snowbirds stay on track?
Yeah.
Stay on track, continue to get better. I think I said it last week during the show that the Snowbirds, their biggest opponent during the middle part of this season is themselves. They need to fight through the tendencies, and it's just a human nature thing to be complacent. When you're playing against an inferior opponent, as they have the last couple of weeks, you want to come out, make sure that you execute your game plan, get better, get 1% to 2% better every time you touch the field. And then by the end of the season, you'll be a completely different team than you were in week 1. So that would be my outlook for the Gaylord St. Mary's Snowbirds. They got quarterback Nathan O'Connell back last week, as you saw him in the highlight videos versus Onaway. A healthy Logan Grenier and Nathan O'Connell. Hopefully the Snowbirds have hopes to get Cal Royce back later on this season. He was injured in that Onaway game. They're hopeful that he'll be able to return at some point in time. However, the Snowbirds just got to keep the train rolling. Right now, they're building good mental callus for a lot of their youth on this team. Most of the time, they'll start 7 sophomores. So mental callus here is something that the Snowbirds want to continue to build upon.
we'll keep it right with you, Charles, as we get into our next game, too. Traverse City St. Francis is going to play host to now 4-1 Boyne City for yet another good game on the St. Francis schedule. The Ramblers won last week 21-7 over Grayling, and now they've had some common opponents as well. Do you see this with Boyne having only the one loss? Do you see this being a close game or in a competitive game?
I do actually see this being a competitive game because it's a different start time. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff, so I think if this is a 7 p.m. kick, I think the Gladiators come out and really establish themselves, get behind their offensive line, get behind their home crowd. But since this game is a 5 o'clock kick, I think Boyne City, that actually helps Boyne City a little bit more than if this game is a 7 p.m. Friday night kickoff at Thurlby, because it gives the Gladiator fans, families, and everybody in attendance a little bit more time to get revved up, a little more time to anticipate going into defeat the common opponent. A 5 o'clock game, most people are stuck in traffic in Traverse City, let's be real. So by halftime, that's when people are going to be showing up. But I actually anticipate Gladiator fans to get there early, take the afternoon off of work, and then get there and get ready to support the Gladiators taking on a conference opponent against the Boyne City Ramblers, who Boyne City only with one loss on the season, and that was to Kingsley. It was a 38-6 loss. So, if we played the score game, St. Francis beat Kingsley, Kingsley beat Boyne City, but I think that gets a little bit too informal.
Agreed,
And,
yeah.
And I think that if you do that score jumping game in comparison and contrasting of common opponents, you're comparing one opponent versus the other opponent when it's really all about that particular day and the opponent that you're playing on any given Friday night in Northern Michigan football.
Jared, anything to add? Does it look like you're raising the mic for something?
Oh, no, I completely agree. I think that Boyne City, even though on paper, especially after the Kingsley loss, it seems like, Traverse City might just run away with it. I think, the 5 o'clock kickoff definitely favors Boyne City. And I just think, they know that they can win the games. They got a talented roster. I've seen them play against Elk Rapids, and I think this game might be a lot closer than we might think.
So to round out the next level schedule for this week, Shane Smith and I will be down in Elk Rapids. Charlevoix going to make the trip down 31 to take on the Elks of Elk Rapids. Both teams coming off victories, and the thing coming into this game is, can Elk Rapids defense shut down the Starrett and Moran show of the Raiders? And one of the bright sides for Elk Rapids has been their defense. They can force turnovers. They do have defensive backs that do a great job. And once and the other good thing about their defense is they do make adjustments. They will go into a locker room and come out with a different game plan or make adjustments on the fly if something is not working. Just like last week where they were down 14-0, started plugging the box and making Mansalona pass, and obviously a couple of big plays, and they're right back in the game.
One key point that I want to make for that Elk Rapids Charlevoix matchup game, Eric, you just talked about it there and it led perfectly into the point. So you would have thought that we actually did like a pre-show meeting here tonight. But one thing that I want to talk about is how Elk Rapids committed to putting 8, sometimes 9 defenders near the line of scrimmage against Mansalona last week. If you do that against Charlevoix, they will see that, spread you out, and then they'll put Ian Moran or they'll put Garrison Starrett in the slot and test the inside coverage of your safeties, linebackers. Can you run on a seam route or a skinny post with some of those athletes that Charlevoix has? And then the offensive line for Charlevoix, got to mention that. They've got 2 tackles, both Glass brothers, playing left and right tackle. Sawyer Blazic in there. That offensive line for the Charlevoix Raiders will really be able, as we got somebody calling into the show right now, as we were going to do a call-in segment tonight. That'll be next week, but the call-in segment
A week early.
So you jumped the gun on that one. But that'd be my question to you, Eric. A game time adjustment that I think the Charlevoix Raiders will make is, hey, we're going to spread you out and see how you can cover in space.
Well, the thing, again, I credit Elk Rapids defense, but at the same time, they also can't have tunnel vision because they can get caught. Like last week, they got caught with tunnel vision looking into the box and looking for the run, and could have had 3 bombs connected by Mansalona for either long gains or for touchdowns. They just couldn't connect on passes. And in the Kalkaska game, whenever Elk Rapids started plugging the box, Kalkaska would spread them out to open up that box, and they'd still run it up the middle and get large gains on that. So again, you got to look out. Are they going to make the proper adjustments on defense, depending on how the game is going? And then on offense, again, for Elk Rapids, the main question has been finding an identity, as it looked like they were trying to do more of a power game as opposed to last year's spread and jet sweeps and bubble screens and whatnot. Now you have Ollie Trammell, the sophomore quarterback, kind of taking over the reins now from Braden Flutie, and it's really opened up Braden Flutie's game too, as he's a very quick player and can run that jet sweep or just be a plain old running back. And again, he was a factor in the scores of last week's game as well. And Trammell can also connect on the deep ball too, as he's hit Connor Carlisle for a couple of deep balls this year. And again, in last week's highlight, you saw him hit Trey Dennis right in the middle for a game that got him inside the 5, which set up the tying score of the game. So I think if the defense can show up and hold them down, they might have a chance to keep this game close if the offense is clicking. But this is going to come down to a perfect game on both sides of the ball from Elk Rapids to stop this Charlevoix team. It just seems to have found it after not knowing what they were about the first game and a half. They just seem to have found out who they are and just started rolling.
Jared, anything else to add? You got a Thursday night football pick?
Oh yeah, I think
the game
I
tonight?
think that's a pretty easy Rams pick here. I'd be shocked to see the Niners put more than 20 points on the board.
Okay. I think the Rams will take it tonight with an injured 49ers team. I don't think that'll be too much of a problem.
Give me the Niners. Give me the Niners and Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones. Put it on the board. Mac Jones and the 49ers. I think they're just going to get behind their offensive line. Christian McCaffrey tonight is going to touch the ball probably 35 times.
So you don't have the whole panel putting Baltimore across the screen then?
No, we're
okay.
not doing that.
Right.
We saw what happens when you do that. And I just got to be different here, but I truly do believe that the San Francisco 49ers have found something in their backup quarterback, Mac Jones, because it's not scouted. I mean, the reads and the progressions and the plays that Shanahan wants to scheme up when Mac Jones is playing, I believe, from watching a couple different San Francisco games, are entirely different than the plays he calls for Brock Purdy. And knowing that Purdy was going to not play all week long, Shanahan has installed plays specifically for Mac Jones, for his reads, for what he likes, for the reads that he likes to get to, on 2nd and 7, 3rd and 3. Hey, let's see. And then on a Thursday night game, you never know what truly can happen. We saw a Thursday night last week where the Miami Dolphins looked good. So, you just kind of get behind your best player, give him the ball 30 times, and then hope that McCaffrey stays alive for week 17. But if you need to get a win, I'm giving it to McCaffrey.
Yeah, and one more point to add is I think this game might be in LA, but if you look at some clips from last year, it might as well be a home game for the 49ers. That crowd is always full of red jerseys. So another thing to account, whether it's home or away, Niners are pretty much going to have the home crowd on their side.
So with that being said, before we sign off, we got some snooze stuff checking up in here, Charles, to talk about. We got some intriguing playoff matchups.
We
in high school football.
We do have some intriguing playoff matchups that we want to.
We talk about as Charles is bringing this up. We like to check in with Snooze to You, which is a great site to look at the not too early playoff rankings to see any potential matchups and look at playoff points and kind of get understanding of how things might be shaping up going into week 6 of the high school football season. And I know, like Charlevoix, as we just got done talking about them, I think right now in their district they would be the 2 seed and at least get one home game before having to possibly make that long trip up to Menominee again. Ooh.
Yeah, and this is the fun thing about Snooze to You and playoff mapatology is that it's kind of the elephant in the room for coaches and players, because if you talk to coaches, they're focused on what's ahead of them in this continuous week. I had an opportunity to talk to Charlevoix coach Don Jess on Monday, and I asked him, I said, what opponent are you playing? He said, the only opponent that we're playing this week Charlevoix is Elk Rapids. So he's strictly game planning for Elk Rapids, and everything that happens in terms of playoff points, it's out of their control. But for fans and broadcasters, this is like the holy grail of speculation. It's kind of like the Joey brackets, Lenardi's, who's in, who's out of the NCAA tournament, or which team is on the playoff bubble or in the hunt for the NFL wild card standing. So in terms of Division 7, yeah, Eric, you alluded to it. Charlevoix is right in the mix with Menominee, McBain, and Manton right now as it pertains to the Region 1 for Division 7. Menominee has a 9.2 lead on Charlevoix in terms of playoff points, which is a significant amount. And then in Division 8, we'll drop down to see where East Jordan, they're in the Region 1 as well. If playoffs started today, they would be taking on Iron Mountain, who that's a nice fresh rematch. Those two played in the district final last year, and I believe Iron Mountain won by 2. And that was a really good game as we keep it moving.
But real quick before you move that on, it's also nice to understand if you get in here and look at these, because you don't necessarily need to get 6 wins to get in, as you're looking at a 3-2 Mansalona team currently in the second spot of District 2 of that division.
Yep.
So it's just because you've got a couple of losses doesn't mean your season's over. You can still fight for an open playoff spot.
Yeah, and then you looked at 8-man Division 2. Gaylord St. Mary is right in the graphic as well. In the Region 2, they're the number 2 seed. And there's still a lot to gain for Gaylord St. Mary, as they have 2 opponents later on this season that have 3 wins or more so far through 5 weeks, one of those being Inland Lakes with 5-0 record. And more than likely, Inland Lakes will have an undefeated record when the Snowbirds play them in Week 9. So right now, Gaylord St. Mary sitting in the 2-hole outside of the other 4 teams in their region. And then the last one that we'll look at for the teams currently in the playoff picture is Traverse City St. Francis. They're the number 1 seed in their region and their district and their entire side of the bracket if playoffs started today. So they'd be scheduled to have a home game Week 1 versus Calumet, and then the winner of Boyne City and Kalkaska if playoffs started today. You see Kingsley also in the same regional or quarterfinal potential matchup there for Kingsley and St. Francis if chalk holds through their regions. So, we might have saw a playoff game, and I believe that as each team's last week between Kingsley and St. Francis were exchanging pleasantries, congratulations on the hard-fought game. They said, hey, there's a very good shot that we'll see each other in the playoffs. So that's the update on Snooze to You for those 2 schools and all the schools that we cover. And then obviously still an outside chance for Elk Rapids to make it into the playoffs if they're able to string some wins together, as they've got a big opponent later on this season. They'll still take on Kingsley. So a good opportunity for Elk Rapids. Obviously won this week versus Charlevoix. They could get a lot of bonus points if they're able to knock off Charlevoix. So if you're Elk Rapids, the season is still ahead of you, and you control your own destiny for the most part.
Well, we'll see how this chapter of the story plays out, and we'll read all about it next week as we do this once again. Thank you all for joining us this week on the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Don't forget, go to nextlevelbroadcasting.net where you can see all the games we are broadcasting this week. Charles, you will be where this week?
This week I'll be down at Thurlby Field for Traverse City, St. Francis, and Boyne City. So that game will be 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Make sure and get your alert set up on the channel, because that way once they hit to go live, you'll be able to get that alert and know when they're getting ready to go, so you can catch the pregame as well. Jared, where are you going to be this week?
I'll be at Boswell Stadium watching the Red Devils take on the Ironmen.
Awesome. That'll be a great game as well. And like I said earlier, I'll be with Shane Smith in Elk Rapids to watch the Raiders and the Elks get it on. Once again, thank you for joining us here on the Next Level Broadcasting Show. NextLevelBroadcasting.net. Go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to Next Level Broadcasting. Gaylord St. Mary's fans, make sure you subscribe to St. Mary's Athletics, where you can see your live football games. And Elk Rapids fans, go to elkrapidsfootball.com. Click on the Watch Live, and the whole list of games for the whole season are right there for you. to click on and go right and watch that game right there, or go to the YouTube channel as well. And I always like to remind everyone at the end of every show, go to Next Level Broadcasting on Instagram. All of the highlights that are played every week and that we break down every week, you can find on our Instagram page. So make sure you're going and checking those out and watching them on repeat. We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you at the games tomorrow. Take care.